Hey, good afternoon and good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I want to welcome you to our second session for the top features selected by our amazing talent here at The Groove for Workday Release 2025 R2. I am Mike Brown. I manage our client initiatives here at The Groove. And today we have some exciting topics, but before we get started, just a few logistics. All attendees will be on mute during the entire session. We will have the chat window open for any Q&A throughout, and our consultants will be answering those as they kind of wrap up the sessions, and we'll likely have some time at the end for additional questions. We will also post the recording on our website after the session has been finalized. And then lastly, we also have a fun Groovy swag giveaway for any attendee who contacts us to learn a little bit more about how the Groove is different from our full-scale AMS to our data and analytics offerings. With that said, we have some fantastic team members on today, eager to share about what they are most excited for in this session. We've got time tracking and absence, payroll, adaptive, and Workday financials. And with that, I will turn it over to Nick Jasper.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining, and thanks, Mike. Like Mike said, my name is Nick Jasper. I'm a principal consultant here at The Groove with my areas of expertise are absence, time tracking, and scheduling with a little bit of Vinley as well. But today I want to talk about some of my most anticipated features for this next release. This first one being the automatic payout of expiring accruals for absence. This is actually a really cool feature because Workday's now actually going to allow time off plans to automatically pay out any unused expiring accruals through a new process called the time off forfeiture adjustment process. Uh, Really, what this is going to include as well is first we can even spark any ad hoc processing for this process so we can run it at any given time, and we can run it retroactively up to 12 months in the past. There is new reporting with this. We can see, which time offs or time off plans have active, and also there's improved visibility for adjustments. So for that adjustment time off adjustments and overrides, we'd be able to see, where those forfeitures are showing up and how much was paid out for those workers. This solves quite a bit of business challenges I've actually seen in the past, and where we've had to configure and come up with manual workarounds. So this definitely reduces quite a bit of administrative burden. Where now instead of having to, whether it's create an adjustment or an override or manually pay out or even payroll input at some points, this will automate the entire process. It definitely improves compliance for any accrual expiration policies. Again, I've seen this multiple times in the past, and reduces any risk for payroll errors, which is huge. And also, it provides employees with timely and accurate payouts. So even if it is a manual process, there's always room for that human error. Whereas now Workday, again, is allowing you to configure it to automatically pay out right on a time off plan. Some deployment considerations here. There for those configured time off plans, Workday automatically will run that time off forfeiture adjustment process on the last day of each period for the time off plan and for the prior 3 periods by default. As I mentioned, you can also change this prior 3 period by default setting at the tenant level to up to 12 months in the past based on the periods. And then one other call out is that the ACRCs or the absence component related calculations for the forfeiture time offs must also be mapped to payroll earnings. So it's important to make that connection. That's why I put it as a level of effort to implement as medium, because there are some other moving parts outside of just, kind of like flicking a switch and turning it on. But it is going to be a really useful release for absence. And we can move on to the next one. So this is another absence feature, number 2, custom additional fields for leave types. This one's also really cool. So Workday also allows time off. Oh, sorry. Workday allows you to create and maintain custom additional fields for leave types. So this can include any Boolean fields, date, numeric, or even text fields. As you may know, on the leave type itself in Workday, you have the configuration, deliver additional fields on the leave type to pretty much say, you can fill in child's birth date, adoption date or adoption placement date, things like that are all delivered. But now we can create completely customized fields here and create custom data points. A few examples here would be maybe like a medical certification or even an appointment date. Again, something that's not inherently delivered on the leave type. There's a new task and new reporting available for the maintain additional fields tasks. So this is again all net new configuration. The leave of absence web service has been updated as well to respect these new custom fields. So even if you are loading through EIB, you might want to, again, generate a new EIB template if it's something you've used in the past, because that web service will be updated. But some business challenges this might solve for the uh, additional custom fields. The custom is, especially for regional and regulatory reporting needs, where again, the delivered fields on the existing lead types now may not fill the need for, very unique cases. And it also will reduce any manual effort for, again, building workarounds externally or even creating sometimes even custom fields outside of this, additional custom field. It's kind of two separate pieces, but it also, some deployment considerations. We have a new security domain for this. So it's all, again, net new, and it is housed on the system domain security. And that's the setup, maintain additional fields. If this is a release you're looking to adopt, again, it's automatically available, but I would highly recommend adding the absence admin to this system domain policy, just so that they have the access to do so if you ever need it in the future, or again, if it's a need right now. Uh, Um, and one other thing to call out, this kind of a two-parter, because this new release is only available for the request absence and manage absence tasks, which are, as we may know, the newer version of the request absence, time off and leave functionality. Kind of another shout out to one I didn't have on here, but this is a good time to add it in. But the older request time off, correct time off, and request leave of absence tasks are being completely sunset. Before this release, Workday was kind of allowing it to be optional which one you'd like to adopt, but now it was moving full to the new experience for request absence and manage absence. So for that reason, I added it as a level of effort to implement for medium. Again, it's not something that would take super long to include, but it is kind of some other moving parts and security updates. And for our third one here, this is kind of a mix between absence and time tracking. This one's also really cool. It takes a lot of manual effort off the employee, and that's the default start and end time from schedule for time off. I would even say it relates to Workday scheduling or any third-party scheduling features as well. So Workday now allows, if a worker is entering any time off or requesting time off that requires a start and end time, those start and end times are going to be allowed to, default from the either A, work schedule calendar, or B, if Workday scheduling is in use and in scope, then from any published schedule from Workday scheduling. I love this because I like how Workday is now trying to get, always trying to get Workday scheduling more involved into the time and absence functionality. And this is another one where we can kind of bring the two together. And this release is more simplified. It's just really a checkbox on the time off itself. So if we have a PTO plan that we want to check this on for, there's a checkbox called the default start and end time from schedule. And again, it will either pull from the work schedule calendar, or if Workday scheduling is in scope, any published schedules. Nothing in draft status from the scheduling side, but it has to be published. And then that's also available on the absence table. So if absence tables are in use, that would also, that checkbox is also there. And some business challenges this will solve. So definitely for one, minimizing any mistakes from employees manually entering times with those time off requests. If I'm able to enter any start and end time and nothing defaults, and my schedule varies, especially for hourly workers, that could really cause some confusion. And just the user experience in general is definitely improved. So I don't have to have maybe two tabs open or two screens to say, okay, I'm looking at first my work schedule, and now also requesting time off on one side to make sure the two align. So kind of unifies that experience. And also, of course, this last bullet here ensures that any time off requests align with your actual schedule. So that was the full goal of this release, which again is going to be super helpful. And really the only main deployment consideration here is that if it's not checked and you are requiring workers to enter time off requests with a start and end time, if that selection is not checked, it will continue to just show blank whenever it comes up. So it would be a free selection of whatever time the employee wants to put the start end time too. So it's a pretty easy level of effort to implement this one. All right, last one here is the enter time by type. This is a time tracking release functionality, one that I'm very much looking forward to using, even here at the group, for entering any project time. So basically, it's a new enter time by type feature. It's quite literally called enter time by type new, and it really is meant to simplify project time entry for workers. It's really moved kind of more to a grid layout. There's a enhanced and expanded project search if you're a consultant, maybe staffed on multiple projects, or and there's also simplified work tag and comment updates, which I'm actually going to show the demo here in just a moment, a really quick demo to kind of just get eyes on what it looks like in a tenant. And there's even the ability to copy and paste time entries for frequent projects, or even add bookmarks to ones that you use pretty. So this will definitely enhance the worker experience. It's more of a modern kind of streamlined interface, and just kind of testing around with it myself, it makes project entry much easier and much quicker, and kind of leaves workers more inclined to keep up with their project entry time, which I know can be kind of difficult at times to make sure everyone's on top of entering that time. And again, it even leaves workers spending less time entering that repetitive project time if they're working on the same projects week to week. And lastly, it will definitely reduce any time entry errors. It helps kind of run that cleaner project billing and payroll runs as it relates to the time trickling down through and cross-functionally within Workday. And to enable this, there's kind of two parts. So I added a level of effort as medium. One is really just another checkbox on the time entry template. And then the second piece is enabling the policy on the enter time BP. So yeah, you definitely need to do both to enable employee self-service access, or even any admin entry on behalf of the worker. So those both will be needed to turn on in order to enable it. And then, like I mentioned, I'm going to do a quick demo before I pass it off. Mike, if you don't mind, I'm going to grab the share here.
Should be all yours.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. If you could just confirm if you can see the Workday tenant.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So I'm currently logged in as Logan McNeil. Logan, as we know, is a super user. So she's also got some projects assigned to her. So I'm just going to do enter that time. And by default, nothing will necessarily change. You can even make this new interface or this new task the default if you would like. But right now, it would still be under that actions button here. So you can see we have the previous enter down by type, kind of the same layout that you might be used to seeing. But I'm gonna show this new one here and show some cooler features. And you'll see we already have kind of a different outlook. Again, it's more of like a grid view. You might even be able to compare it to maybe like an Excel type view. You can always enter any time types, time entry codes outside of project time. If it's training, admin, just regular hours. You saw the most recently used and bookmarked projects. Currently, we don't have any bookmarked right now. And then it'll show all your time here. So then we have this expanded search. This is what I was mentioning earlier, where if you go in and search, you can, type in keywords. Let's say I'm looking for a payroll project. I can search and it'll show, a global payroll support project. Or if I just want to look at, kind of select all projects here, I can do that as well. And I'm currently as Logan assigned to 2 here, so we'll be able to pull up both of them. Is going just a little slow, but once you do search them, kind of like how we searched the global payroll support one, that'll show here. You can pretty much just select the row and you can either bookmark them, save them for later. And then anytime you go to the search functionality, you'll see that that project is bookmarked. And then if you select that row and add it, it'll go right to your timesheet. And then from here, let's say you want to delete any rows or anything like that, you can. There's those bookmark projects here, and then you can even edit the details. So this is kind of where Workday tries to simplify that, again, that experience where you can add it all kind of on one interface. You don't have to jump somewhere else to add any comments. You can add your 8 hours for one project and add your comment here, and then go down to the next day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You can enter everything as such and then save. You'll still get all of your validations for time entry. You'll still get full experience, but it's just, again, more simplified process. I will say the only kind of thing I've come across too, and I don't know if it's my screen maybe or not, but this submit button has been cut off. Even if I zoom in or out, I have seen that it's kind of cut off a little bit in half, but otherwise love this release. And, like I said, definitely looking forward to using it here at the group. And with that, I'll stop sharing and I'm going to let Mike share your screen, bring up that presentation again, if you don't mind, and then I will pass it off to Cody for payroll.
Hey, everyone.
All right, Cody.
My name is Cody Cole. I've been in the Workday ecosystem for almost 13 years now in the payroll, all in payroll. I'm also time tracking certified as well, but my specialty is payroll. I've been a consultant now for about 3 years as well. So I'm going to talk about the payroll features of this release, at least a few of them. So our first one is for current accounting for gross and net pay results. So this is pretty exciting. On the pay results, there's a new tab right next to the actuals tab, where you can now view all journal lines that impact the pay result in a single view, instead of having to run multiple reports. And it actually it will include completed and processed within the pay result results, and it's an immediate, comprehensive picture of all transactions affecting a pay result. Original journal lines and any subsequent adjustment entries are presented together, which is awesome. So you're not having to run, from the current result or a completed result back to backdated, or whatever you need, whatever reports you're running currently. It's all going to show on that current result now. It's automatically available, so there's no setup required. So yeah, it's just going to be ready for you right off the bat. And go to the next slide, please. The second one is the bank account verification for payment elections. So Workday has added a new verification screen for edit payment elections and change account information tasks, to make entering bank details easier and more secure. So if an invalid account number is entered, the system will pop up an error message saying incorrect account number, and also show the number of attempts left by the user. So by default, Workday sets it up as 6 attempts. You can customize that number in the setup. And basically, challenges it solves, it enhances stronger protection against errors and fraud while keeping the process smooth and user-friendly. So there is a little bit of configuration just within the edit tenant setup for financials. There's a box that needs to be checked for bank account masking for payment elections. And then also within that same edit tenant setup, there's enable bank account verification for payment elections. And then there's the last one is to configure the maximum attempts override for payment election verification. that's where you can set the number of change the number of attempts to 6 to 3 or 10 or whatever. You can also set a custom notification or message that gets delivered, and then you can route it to a specific security group to basically unlock them. So if they attempt more than 6 times, they will get locked out from trying to change their bank account information. So then they would that would get pushed to, let's say, the payroll admin to unlock them to be able to update it going forward. So that's why I said the level of effort was medium. But I think it is a nice feature to be able to let user, or basically lock down the user from, if someone else were to get into their account, they can't just change their account number to a different bank account without knowing what the current election or what the current bank account is set at. So, all right, number 3. So this is Workday will not auto adjust taxable wages over the wage limit. It'll adjust flat rate statutory taxes that include taxable wage limits during payroll calculation. So the deductions that will now auto update are paid family medical leave for, I'm not going to read all those states, but those states listed, the SDI for California, Puerto Rico, and Rhode Island, the TDF and VDI for New Jersey, as well as OASDI, SUI, and FUI. Totally realize that this will only affect a small subset of customers. There may be cases where prior payroll history needs to be loaded from a legacy system after payroll results have already been completed. But now Workday will auto update those results, and it reduces the need to make manual adjustments to adjust overstated taxable wages. Again, this is automatically available. However, it is recommended to review those results. There could be scenarios where if it's not reviewed, that Workday or that manual work would need to be corrected, basically so that you're not reporting on negative wages. But there's no I guess there's not a negative impact. You just have to audit as you're normally doing anyways. So I think it's a good feature. You can go to number 4. And the last thing for payroll that I have is for payroll input custom validations. So there's a new, within the maintain custom validations task, they now have payroll input as a section. So you can create validation rules for payroll inputs based on various criteria. For example, you can restrict payroll input creation by pay component for specific workers, by amount. You can do ongoing versus not. You could do it's a combination, so it's not just one. And it's a new, there's a new critical severity level that's been introduced. So when invalidation is marked as critical, Workday prevents users from creating payroll inputs without the required authorization. So this allows you to define your own validation rules to ensure payroll data is accurate at the point of entry. It does apply to the added payroll input by worker, on-demand payments, manual payments, tasks, by user interface as well as through EIBs. So the deployment for this Basically, you're going to the maintain custom validation task, and then from there, there's a payroll input section, and that's where you can create your custom validation rules. It's pretty quick, easy to do. It's could be low, could be medium. It's depending on how in depth you want to get into it. But I think it is a cool feature for sure. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Josh.
Great, thanks, Cody. All right, hi everyone. My name is Josh McKinnon. I'm a managing consultant here at the Groove, focusing in on all things adaptive, from workforce planning, financial planning, anything that you can or want to do in adaptive, I more or less cover. So with this latest release, Adaptive is actually releasing about 26 new enhancements within the system. I'm only going to be covering 4 of them. Most of them do focus a lot on the original implementation of Adaptive. So for those of you on this call who have yet to implement, a lot of those features help streamline the initial setup from an integration perspective and really help streamline that process for us. So I'm not going to be covering on many of those just because they're mostly just helping implementers get Adaptive off the ground a little quicker. But we will be focusing on are a lot of the UI changes that have been released and are going to be released. This first one is just the constant evolution of AI when it comes to Workday products. And it's the first step in introducing an AI bot within, not really a bot, but a chat more or less within Adaptive. So it's going to be serving as it's going to have 2 functions within the system. The first one is going to provide users, when you're in an HTML report, with the ability that you can ask it to provide a flux analysis for you. Now, it's not going to know your individual details like you would know, and it does take time for it to learn and adapt to your data so that it is giving you more customized responses. But it is a really nice tool to be able to use from a starting point from a flux analysis standpoint, as when we're going through our quarterly closes, monthly close process, and we're doing a budget to actuals comparison, forecast actuals comparison, it's helpful to get a starting point. Now, the next step from that you'd still go and dive a little deeper to get more detail behind them, but it is a nice starting point from a fluctuation comparison perspective. The other thing is the contextual help. So today, you actually have to go to a separate window where you hit the question mark in the top of the screen, and it'll bring you to the administration guide. The new feature, what it does is allows you just to chat. You can ask ask Workday messaging, say, hey, how do I add a new sheet? How do I adjust this calculation to get this output? And ask it specific questions for what you're trying to accomplish. That can be used from an administrator perspective or even your end users. So it is a really cool tool, and it really allows you to focus and become more efficient while staying on within your main adaptive screen, but being able to get your answers right in front of you as well. So this way you don't have to go to a second window, and you don't have to go and worry about your keywords that you're using in the admin guide. So they're improving your efficiency and accessibility to that information right within the tool itself. So just a really big feature. It's a low effort. Of course, with anything AI and machine learning and adaptive planning, it is an opt-in. So you as an administrator, for those of you who are administrators on the call or potentially future administrators, it is a feature that you can enable from an admin perspective, and you can give just admins to test, or you can give end users access as well. So anything with AI and machine learning with an adaptive, of course, is opt-in. You do not have to enable it if you don't want, but it is a cool tool that, once again, just another enhancement on the AI front within adaptive. There was a new algorithm that they released for machine learning. I'm not going to cover that. A lot of this, most people are going to be using the best. There's an average where essentially it'll pick the best fit is what it's called for you. That's another enhancement that they release, but not one that I'm going to be covering today. Go to the next one, Mike. This one is a big one, and you might have heard me talk about this during our R1 release. And from my understanding, I more or less was promised that this is not going to get pushed again. Of course, when it gets closer to our releases, there's always a chance that some features for one reason or another could get pushed. But this one was pushed back in R1. I was told it's coming with this upcoming release. And this is that next, I'm going to use the word evolution here again, but today we don't have the ability to make version specific overrides for links. So a lot of times with historical budgets, it's really difficult for us to get those into a system, into adaptive once we established a link. For those of you new to adaptive, essentially think of a link as connecting models to our outputs of GL accounts. It's an interconnectivity of different modeling sheets, as we call it, and to our outputs on the GL front. So what this really allows us to do is change our models and create new models and then link in. So instead of just stacking and stacking and stacking, I can choose in any given version, say, you know what, this model is kind of stale. We do need to revisit it. But for the time being, I'm just going to flip the switch for this budget cycle or for this forecast cycle, make it manual, and I'm going to go in and enter my data directly. Or the vice versa, which is we're going to start with it being data entry, but in the future, we're going to build out a new revenue model or build out a new OpEx model and link that in. So this actually helps you go through a phased approach of implementing adaptive where you're not worried, you don't have to worry about wiping out historical data that's already there. So this is a big feature that is going to be super helpful as we continue to grow and develop our models. Once again, it's a low effort. It's available right off the gate, out of the gate, and not much to worry about there. And I did mention here, machine learning outputs. Today, they live in a separate version. Machine learning is meant to help us complete our budgets. It's not there to replace. And so as the machine learning and you become more comfortable with that, if you're using it, you can now extract that data and re-import it into your GL accounts and use that as your budget. So that's just one of the examples that this is going to help solve for. Go ahead, Mike. All right, the next two ones are more fun elements that help us keep in touch with what's happening within the system, even though we're not in the system. So one thing you will notice over the next two releases, and there's even some elements getting released over the next few months, is R2.1, R2.3, or 2, or so on. And this is one of the features that's coming out now, but will only continue to get better as the notification processes available to you in adaptive continue to grow. With these Slack notifications, any integration fails that happen in the system a notification can now get pushed to you via Slack. Now, for those of you on Teams, unfortunately, it's not there yet. But for those of you who are using Slack, you can take advantage of this right away once the release happens. There is a bit of setup with this because you have to create the connection between adaptive and Slack. And so you might need an IT department person to help you set it up. The instructions are available to you. I took a read through them. They seem pretty straightforward, but there are a few steps in the process. So I did flag this as a moderate level of effort. It just really helps you create more connected and stay connected where maybe you're away or you're doing something else and somebody runs a process and then an error happens, something of that nature, then you get notified. Eventually, as the workflow gets better, this is when it's going to help even more, is that as they release the new workflow features that are going to be coming over the next few releases, you're going to be able to get a notification saying, hey, Chelsea submitted the budget for your review. Cody submitted your revenue for your review, and it'll pop up in your Slack window. So once again, it is for Slack. Maybe one day in the future they'll open it up for Teams, but I can't speak to that. But this is a great starting point. And then the next one is sticking alongside our messaging features within the system. This is now introducing the first iteration of the in-app messaging. As an implementer, I get lots of questions around, it would really be nice to be able to @ somebody within the system. Meaning I could be reviewing a budget and I have a question on it. And so I want to enter a cell note and say, hey, Mike, can you come into the system and review this? I have some questions and can you respond back? Now that's coming over time. What they're doing to start with is introducing dashboard app messaging, where on a dashboard, you could put a comment and you could tag somebody with that comment. And then eventually that person would get, if they have Slack, would get a notification in Slack saying, hey, Mike submitted has a question for you on this dashboard perspective, where all your sheets would be organized and so on. And it's one of those things that continue to improve overall efficiencies. Now, the in-app messaging is only going to continue to get better. Can't speak to anything that is going to be coming as Workday has it, but I do know from talking to various people on the product side that there are going to be continued improvements with this, where you can imagine being able within a model sheet, within a cube sheet, to be able to at somebody and they get a notification, they can come in. So all of these messaging and all of these notification processes are only going to continue to get better. But this one is the first iteration as far as being able to tag somebody directly in the system and then produce a notification downstream. So low effort, automatically released, and you just need to have access to dashboards. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it off to Sylvia to wrap us up.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody today? Thank you, Josh, for that. My name is Sylvia Gonzalez. I'm a Fins consultant here at the group I mostly do FDM, Fin accounting, budgets, expenses. So I've been in the ecosystem for Workday since 2018. I started as a client and then I moved into consulting. For today, I have 4 enhancements for Fins. One will be expenses, tour Fin accounting, and then you're also gonna see one for supplier invoices. At the end, I will go into the tenant and just walk you through some of those enhancements. First, we're gonna go through the screens here. So the first enhancement is expenses hub on mobile. So if you are set up to have that mobile in your phone, if you have Workday in your phone and your templates, you should be able to see it already, that you will be able to see what you see in your computer currently, which is that expense hub. So how does that help your organization? If you have a lot of people out of the office, if you have like capital projects, you have project managers that are always turning in this stuff, it's going to make their life a lot easier. They're going to be able to look at their expense activity. They're going to be able to see balances that are owed to them all in that one hub. And the navigation has become a lot simpler for them also. In regards to that, they're going to be able to see payment information. They're going to be able to see their travel profiles. So all of that will be at their hands to be able to report as soon as possible. I think this is important for anybody that deals with budgets and you really want to have a very timely budget to actual transacting. You want to see everything that's coming in on a daily basis. I believe this is going to make it a lot easier for your employees. So if you already have this, if you have that mobile expense functionality, check your phones, check your tablets for that expense hub, and just tell your employees that it's available for them now. Okay, it's a low effort. It's already there for you guys. Okay, Mike, the second screen, please. So this one is a little bit more complicated, even though it's already there. It is an enhancement, but it is mostly a fix. If you currently have companies that are doing intercompany with different currencies, and you created some recurring journals, if you have these recurring journal templates and you had them to submit yes, and I will go into tenant and show you where that is after this, Workday was submitting those journals with 0 value. So it wasn't calculating your values. What would happen to you as an accountant? You had to go in and post those journals and correct the journals. So Workday has done it that you're able to create your template. I I would just recreate those templates that you already have and just recreate them if you have those intercompanies with different currencies. Go and now you can post your journals, and your journals will have the translations, they will have the values, so you don't have to be going through that trouble of getting zero value posted journals in your tenants. Okay. That's also, this feature is automatically done. It's low impact for you. You don't have to do anything. You just have to go in and just verify that the current recurring journals you currently have, if you do have those intercompanies and those different currencies, that they're working properly. If they're not working properly, I would just recommend that you recreate those recurring journal templates. Okay. So if you can go to the next slide. So this one, as an accountant myself, this is very exciting. So for anybody that deals with your update ledger period status for month-end closings, if you're closing a month and you have different tasks that you are coming and you're closing as you go, Workday now is able to show you everything that you have open. It's not going to erase your data like in the past. It was erasing everything. If you went from close to close in progress or open to close in progress, and you had certain functionalities that you were marking like payroll, procurement, suppliers, if you came in and changed that status, it would erase all of your procurement checks, all of your suppliers checks. So you will have to kind of remember, the person that's doing month end will have to remember, oh boy, I need to go in and check everything again. Now you can add, you can delete, but you can see your history. So that's something that I think will help everybody that's doing month end, year end. You'll be able to say, yes, I'm going to open procurement, close payroll, but you're going to see everything that you have currently as in closed status. And especially if you have 2 or 3 people going in the tenant and making those changes, you will see that history of what is open and what is closed. So that's also available already in your tenants. So next time you go into month end, just look at your company, look at your period, and see that you're able to make those changes, and those changes stay there. And I will show that in the tenant after my 4th slide that it's coming up. Mike, can you go to 4? And then this one is in regards to supplier invoices. So now you have the ability to create separate payments for the same vendor, for the same supplier. So that will help you if you have different remittance addresses. Let's say you have Home Depot and you have and you have to remit to one place, and then you have another remittance address for a different contract. You're able to separate those payments when you do your settlement runs. Now, this is already there. You will see the check mark, and the check mark will be in a few different places. When you go into the supplier invoice, if you go to create supplier invoice, you'll see it. If you go into change, approve invoices, you will see it. Copy supplier invoices. So there's a few tasks where you're already gonna see that little check mark where you can train your end users to say, if we're going to separate the payments, this is where you need to go. You can also do it in the actual supplier, but if you do it in the actual supplier, then all your payments are going to be separated. It's not going to net all the payments if you need to net them. So it might be, depending on how your organization works, you have to make a decision. Is this supplier, I need to have separate payments all the time for them? Or do I have a mixture of them? If you have a mixture of them, then I do recommend that you just do it at the task level of like create a supplier invoice or adjust a supplier invoice, correct a supplier invoice. Okay, so you will be able to see that task. Now, that little check mark is going to be on read only if you are the approver. So somebody created a supplier invoice, they didn't check the check mark, you won't be able to adjust it as an approver. You will have to send it back for them to be able to adjust. So you cannot see it. It's only read only under approve and preview and view. So that's something just to keep in mind as you go through this process. It also, Workday created some new report fields, and they live in the public reporting items domain. So if you have some custom reports that you want to update with the separate payment lines, you're able to bring in the following fields. It's called separate payments for recurring supplier invoice, a separate payment for supplier invoice schedule, or separate payments. If you are using EIBs and you're bringing in some of your supplier activity through EIBs, that column is going to be included, but just keep in mind that you need to bring version 45.0, because if not, you won't see it. So you probably will need to update all your EIBs for the suppliers, if that's something you do on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, just to make sure that you're able to see that field, okay? So Mike, if I can I share my screen?
Yep, it should be over to you now.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
Good. Sylvia, you have to click share, just heads up.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I'm going in there.
all right.
Can anybody see my screen now?
Looks like it's coming through.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. So I'm in the GMS tenant, and the first thing that I want to show you is those recurring templates. So if I go to find recurring journal template right here, and I created one. I already created one so you guys can see how this looks like. So this is my template. It's a multi-currency template. This is what I was talking about, that when we had automatically submit generated journals, if you had yes, and you submitted that journal, the values I have here will come in as 0. But with this correction, you're able to come into your journal entry, generate your new journal. I already did it for January and February as a test, but let's do for March of this fiscal year. And I'm gonna do okay, and it's going to generate that journal with no problems, no zeros are entered. You will see that intercompany with the values, and then you're also gonna see the translations, okay, for the intercompany. So that was my slide number 2 for those recurring journal templates. For the one for the mass update, ledger period status, let's go into 2026, and let's do GMS USA. Let me pick all periods. And this is what I was talking about. Your accountant, your accounting manager, your accounting operations lead is in the process of closing your month, and you have all of these items are in close activity. I'm able to see them now. Now, if I come in here and I change it to close in progress, in the past, this will get erased. Everything will go away. Now you're going to be able to keep it here, and you can say, okay, I'm going to reopen procurement. There's some invoices we need to include, but I need to close payroll. Here we go. I close payroll. I keep everything. So whoever, if you have 2, 3 people coming in to open close periods, they're not going to erase anything. They're just going to add or delete all of their activity, the activity that they need to do, but you will still see whoever came first had as a closed activity. So I think to me as an accountant, this is really useful because you're able to track everything and you don't have to worry that somebody is going to come in, put close in progress, and then forget to close expenses, and expenses are going to be posting to a close period. Okay? And then the last one is that supplier invoice for the split payments. So if I go to create supplier invoice, this is where you're going to have to train your employees. This is the check mark right here. When they create an invoice, if they want to separate the payments, this is what they're going to have to do. Okay, like I mentioned before, the approvers are not able to change this. All you can do is send it back for them to adjust it if this is something you want to see. But this is something that it will eliminate your ad hoc settlements that you had to do because you had to send it to different people. You can do the separate payments. And I did run a settlement run, so I can show you So, and let me do the date. So this is my settlement run, the 2025 R2. If I go into my settlement run in here, it's for the same vendor, it's for Office Depot. I did 2 invoices for Office Depot, but I did put them that I wanted to see them as separate payments. And when I go into the new tab, you will see there are 2 different checks. They have the same remittance because this one didn't have different remittance for the as a payee, but you will see the 2 separate checks. Okay, so if I go into one of them here, only one item was picked up, my supplier invoice E1234, even though I ran payments for Office Depot in that one settlement run. Okay, so that's what I have for you guys today. Let me unshare.
Thank you, Sylvia.
You're welcome.
All right, Chelsea, do we have any other questions coming through at this point in time?
Yes, we did get a couple questions through the Q&A. So the first one is for Nick. Can the new enter time by type task be enabled if projects are not in use?
That entered time by type new task can be enabled even if projects aren't in scope. You won't have that project search functionality, but you can still use it as a grid kind of newer grid version of the enter time by type experience.
Thank you. A question for Sylvia. What will happen if I do not update the supplier create separate payments for supplier invoices?
So what will happen is you will combine all your payments into that one check. So I think it's important to, as the end user, and if you are, head of payroll, accounts payable, you will have to train all the people that do create invoices, that review invoices, that edit invoices to make sure if those payments have to be split, that they check that little box. If you check that little box in the supplier itself, then that supplier will have separate payments for everybody. But if you want to just have it on a invoice basis, then you will have to go in and train everybody and make sure that that little box is checked.
Thank you so much. And then we have 2 questions for Cody. Does the bank account validation replace pre-noting, or does it validate that an account number is wrong?
No, it only basically makes it secure so only the account holder can edit their bank information. So I'd say a limitation for that would be if an employee enters information wrong and doesn't know doesn't know how they entered it wrong, then they would likely get locked out. Then it would go to the administrator to unlock them and edit their bank information from there.
Thank you. And then the other question for you is, for the payroll input custom validation, can we use security group? For example, if payroll partner creates the input.
Unfortunately not, as of right now at least. Workday doesn't let you select like payroll partner or security group in the validation, only like pay component amounts, a specific worker. If you wanted to limit a specific pay component for a worker, you could do that, but you can't do it by who is submitting the input, I suppose is a better way to say that.
Thank you. And those are the questions that we got through. Oh, we got another one. For the payment election validation, do you have to have Workday Financial to implement?
That's a good question. I don't believe so, but I'd have to look at that further to know for sure.
Okay, we can get back to you on that question just to confirm before we direct you on that. Does anyone else have any questions? Great. Well, thank you all for attending, and thanks to our presenters. Feel free to contact us if you want to do a working session or see a live demo. And we appreciate you coming. Thanks all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.